Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us. My name is Maggie Abdell, and I'm the Director of Sales with Bennett Mercado Hospitality. I have with us today Ellen Gerchik in the New York area that's also joining us. And we are lucky to have our friend and favorite Africa specialist, Rue, with us. I love Rue.
Hi.
And
Hi.
she just returned. Well, she's in Cape Town right now, but she just last month returned from Namibia and wants to share her unique insights on. It sounds like a really interesting and life changing trip. So she's going to share that insight because I know that a lot of you are looking for other off the beaten path options in on the continent. And Rue, of course, has some great insights. She also likes to say that she turns left when everybody turns right. And I think this will definitely show you what Rue can do for your clients.
I'm going to start off with a very disturbing photograph, which I hope, well, you probably have all seen something like this. The big question of over tourism in Africa and how do we address this issue? So I was in Kenya in July and on the way from in the Masai Mara, on the way from one concession to another, this kind of scenario is something that you see quite frequently. And it it's quite disturbing. And I know that there was an article in the New York Times in January, which was very detrimental to the safari business in Kenya, because obviously we are all trying to do our best not to promote over tourism and to have sustainability as a core element that we follow in our business practices. And why, how do we avoid this, and why do we need travel advisors? Why does clients need a travel advisor? A travel advisor needs a tour operator or DMC to help you not put your clients in this situation. And I think Namibia and a combination of carefully selected lodges in Southern Africa might just be the answer. I think what's happened in the last few years is that we've concentrated on specific regions and overemphasized and oversell the migration and different safari experiences. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that it doesn't matter where you go in Africa, and it doesn't matter what time of the year you go in Africa. It might be in the summer, in our summer, which is your winter. It might be in the autumn. It might be in spring. It might be in winter. The different seasons bring different aspects of wildlife, and I know that a lot of people mostly want to promote safaris for families during the long school holidays that are in the United States, and that's during your summertime. But I think for couples that are retired and couples that have more flexibility, you might want to promote the out of season experience, not only because it helps over tourism, so we call it low season travel, but it's also far less expensive because tourism, like all things, as we know, Europe is far more expensive in the summer because it's the peak season, and the same thing happens in on safari. So more people are going on safari. It's extremely expensive. There could be easily a difference of $1,000 per day, peak versus green season, for example. So there's always really good excuses or reasons to say to someone, well, why don't you divert your trip to a low season, and try and not get this situation for a client. This is basically what is very cheap and nasty, in my opinion. We all know that safari is very expensive. And the reason it is expensive is because we want to bring people into a pristine wilderness area, which is extremely remote and where you kind of leave the crowds behind. So this is the focus today on what we want to achieve, and I'm going to discuss an itinerary, which I think is a really good example of how you can do that. That's the dunes and the Namib Desert. So I think this itinerary is definitely for a return guest, or for a person that's extremely adventurous and a first-time safari goer. The reason I say that is Namibia is, generally speaking, a harsh environment. It's very hot, 93, 97 degrees in the daytime, in the summertime, in the springtime. In the wintertime, it's a desert. It gets freezing cold during the night. So it's remote. I'll show you some photos of the camp I've just visited. I think that if you want to do this as a first timer to Africa, you just need to be briefed correctly, and our job to sell it correctly so that the expectation is set and that people are not like completely shocked out of their minds when they arrive in the desert sand and it's extremely unpleasant temperatures that they have to deal with. A lot of the camps don't have AC because that goes against every possible sustainability model. So there's fans, and I know that a lot of people are not very happy with that kind of accommodation. So I would say that this is a mix between a 4 and a 5-star model, and you come and go. The specific properties that I've put in this itinerary is a mix. There's one property that they do not have aircon, AC, and that's the Vulverdance property, and then the rest are all fine and easygoing. So a little bit of a mix and match, and sometimes that's fun because you kind of also realize how comfortable we've got life, and you do appreciate the finer things in life when you've realized it's quite hot in the evening, 80 degrees, and you've only got a fan going in your bedroom. So most of you would know Cape Town. The reason I've added Cape Town in the start of this itinerary, I think it's always a good thing to start with a base and just to get off that international flight and just absolutely relax. Get over jet lag. There's a lot of stuff to do in Cape Town. You can really spread your legs. You can go for a walk in the Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens. You can go for a hike up Table Mountain. You can go for wine trips to Stellenbosch or Franschhoek, and just enjoy the absolute raw beauty of Cape Town and world-class city with incredible food and wine, and just to get yourself settled into the time zone. From Cape Town, there are flights, daily flights, 2 daily flights to Namibia, to Windhoek, which is the capital. So that's Windhoek. Cape Town is not on this map. It's way down in the south, but the flight is only 2 hours. And what I did on my trip is I left on the 7:20 a.m. flight out of Cape Town, which is, it's early, but it's very reasonable. And we arrived in Windhoek just after 9 o'clock. And we had a connection with a charter flight to take us down to this area around here. I'll come back to the map to show you the logistical aspects. I saw that there were a few questions about how do you choose properties in Namibia and how do you put them together. So this is this way, we flew this way. So down south, about an hour and a half's flight. And we got to this amazing place. It's the Namibia Nature Reserve. And the camp that we stayed in is Vulverdance. And I think in all the years that I've been in the business, which is 25 years, and I've visited hundreds of properties and I've traveled a lot across the continent. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this when it comes to a sustainable element where a camp is literally self-sustainable. They have groundwater, so they have a borehole, which is incredible. The owner of the farm, his father bought the farm, and it was a cattle farm, and they restored it back to a nature reserve. They only have the wild game on the farm now, but there's a natural water source that runs very deep that they can utilize. So they're very blessed in that aspect. They have the most incredible back of house. I've never seen something like it. They do not have to bring in any fresh food from anywhere. The flight is an hour and a half from Windhoek. The road transfer is 6 hours long. So you can imagine that you can't drive to go and get bread or eggs or milk or anything that you need for guests' food. They've got chickens that lay eggs. They've got pigs. There's everything that you possibly can imagine. And freshest food. I've never eaten freshest salad ever. And it's extraordinary. That's in the middle of a desert. And this is this incredible, healthy, very conscious of every aspect of the footprint that we make on buying food from far away, bringing in food from far away. They've just covered all their bases, and they genuinely they walk they're talking the talk. They're walking. I don't know, what do you say? Walking the talk. They do what they say they're going to do. It's a lot of places you often hear about what they say they're doing, but you don't really know if it's true. And I can guarantee you that this is like the most mind-blowing. I've never seen anything close to it. They could literally just survive. The whole world can go up in smoke and they will be completely unaffected because they are 100%, they're off the grid. They've got incredible solar power from the sun. The area that they are situated in has got sunshine every single day of the year. So there's no reason to use any electricity on the grid. And then on top of that, the dark sky reserve, and I was quite taken aback on the first night, having to walk back from dinner back to my tent, where this is just one of the photos. You can see how absolutely open sky it is. But that's the tent that I stayed in. And I had to walk back, and I literally could not see my hand in front of my eyes. And if you want to see dark sky, open sky, I think probably similar to something in Montana, I would imagine, but just extraordinary. So that's why I say I think this is good for a return visitor to Africa, because I think if you do something like this, you've had your East Africa safari, or you've had your Botswana safari. You've seen the animals and you're relaxed about it. And then here you are combining scenic splendor with other species of animals that you might not have seen prior. Example, the oryx is prevalent here. They're all over the place. And it's incredible to see all the desert adapted animals that live in this arid region. So we went on a Bushman walk where the Bushmen used the tracks and the spoor of the animals, and we found a lot of animals by them doing that. So it's extraordinary to see this ecosystem and see this life that actually exists on a daily without the excess of water and the easiness that we have, you know, in life. Yeah, extraordinary, very, very cool. You can see there, this is a photo of the summertime when it's rained. So to make a note, the weather patterns here are similar to that of the Kruger National Park in Botswana. The rainy season will be in January and February. So this would have been March, when which is the end of the summer, it's the beginning of autumn. And you can see how the environment completely transforms. I mean, that's how it looks. And then you can see that. So that's why I said earlier, I think it's really sometimes important for us to say to clients, well, it might be a good idea to travel in a completely different month, off season, when things are completely different. This is, for me, a very beautiful time of the year, because you can imagine how different the environment is and the ecosystem is when there's so much grass abound. And the other thing that I find extraordinary is that in the summertime, there's a lot of small animals, the babies have been born. So that's always, for me, a plus to encourage people to experience that. So that was Wolvedans. Now I just want to go back to the map. That this was over here. And so from here we left, stopped in Swakopmund, which is on the coast, very nice little German town. And then we went all the way up to Etosha. Now, I know that I saw in the questions earlier, a few of you have asked, how do you plan, and which properties do you use in Namibia? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop with my itinerary before we get to Etosha, which was our next stop, and just explain to you about this side, the famous Skeleton Coast. Depending on how many times a client's been to Africa, depending on how much time a client has, I'm going to say that if clients have been to Africa on many, many safaris, then I would absolutely do Namibia as a standalone. And I would suggest no less than 12 nights in a country. The itinerary that I'm discussing today is a combination of 2 places in Namibia that we chose for very specific reasons for this trip that we were on, and a combination of Cape Town, and then a combination of something in the Kruger National Park. But if you've had, and there's a lot of people that's been to Africa 3-4 times, they're saying to you, well, I want to go to Namibia because I want to do something completely off the beaten path, and I've heard so much about this country, then I would definitely say a 12-night stay. And how I would do it is fly into Windhoek and stay the night. Following day, go down this way to the south. There's wilderness lodges and beyond lodges here as well. And I'm sure everyone has heard of Sissesvlei and Deadvlei. It's a very famous area of the Nowcliff National Park, but also highly recommended that you do it with the correct people. Otherwise, you're going to have the same scenario with all those vehicles. And then from here, I would say you make your way up to Damaraland. Here is a very beautiful camp by Wilderness, Desert Rhino Camp, and is very focused on black rhino conservation. So you can actually go and have a walk with a ranger and track rhino, which is quite exhilarating and thrilling, obviously. So I would say 3 nights over here, then 2 nights here, then move on to the Skeleton Coast National Park. There's a few different lodges here. Natural Selection have lodges, Wilderness have lodges. I think Sanctuary has opened up lodges, and do 3 nights in this region. And why you would want to come here is, first of all, the famous Skeleton Coast, which everybody knows about and everybody asks about, but also to see the true desert adapted animals that live here. There's lions, giraffe, elephant, which you can almost not believe, but they've all adapted to live in these regions, in this extreme arid region. So it's a very interesting experience. It's a much deeper dive into animal behavior, and to see how easy the animals have it in the Mara, with so much food and so much water. And these animals, how they've had to really conserve energy and food to survive. Up here on the border there with Angola is a very famous camp called Serra-Kafema. And I think if someone has the time and the means to do it, I would definitely add that. And then finish in Etosha at the camp that I will show you. I went to Ongava, which is a private game reserve that's next door to Etosha National Park, and then end over here and then return to Windhoek and fly out. So for the people that want to only do Namibia, that's what I would do. I would do Windhoek, go down to this area, Sissusvlei area, then up to Damaraland, go to Skeleton Coast. If you can, at Serra-Kafema, end in Etosha, and then get yourself back to Windhoek. There are flights from Germany. I think Eurowing flies direct into Windhoek. So that enables you to actually, you don't even have to go anywhere in any other Southern Africa country. There's direct access from Europe into Windhoek, which makes it logistically an easy place. So back to our trip, we then went to Etosha. You can see this photograph is taken in the summertime. That typical sky that we know in Africa that builds up in the afternoons, and then you have this amazing thunderstorm and rain, and then the next morning the sun is shining. So you can see the very white clay. The roads is from the Etosha pan. It's that white clay. And this is really how the environment looks. We stayed at a place called Ongava Anderson's Camp, and very comfortable. I've not seen tents this large. The square meterage, I don't know what it is, but it's massive. The biggest bedroom, most incredible bathroom, and the whole camp is situated around a water hole. So when you are in your bedroom, you can look at the water hole, and when you are sitting at lunch, you've got the water hole. We had extremely good luck. I think it was just, I don't know, beginner's luck. We went on a game drive in the nature reserve, in the private game reserve adjacent to Etosha the first night, and we had lions that just killed an oryx, and the whole clan, the whole pride was there, and it was just incredible to see. The next morning, we actually went into the national park, and unfortunately, the same scenario as what that first slide is showing, that I was showing, occurred. We were on the road, and just 20, 30 vehicles together. So I'm going to emphasize that we choose the properties that we want guests to experience very carefully, and we make sure that these are private concessions and that there's very strict rules on behavior, behavior from the guide, behavior, how you approach a kill or a sighting. There's usually not more than 3 vehicles allowed at a sighting, and you have to give each other space and time. It's supposed to be an unselfish experience. It's very difficult when you are the vehicle that's found the kill and you would like to sit there for a long time, but it is the custom to let other people also come in and see that. So that's why a lot of times the guide will say, okay, we're going to move on. And it's just because there's protocol and you kind of want to be a decent human being and give other people a chance to experience that as well. So we don't allow this immense conglomeration of vehicles on top of each other in the private concessions. And that's why when someone asks, why is the safari so expensive? It is one of the reasons. You basically, you're paying for the experience and you're paying for space. You're paying for getting away from people. That it's the remoteness and everything that goes with that that creates the more expensive holiday. It's probably one of the most expensive holidays that people can do. We're very much aware of that aspect, and we try to keep things, not to escalate a price that gives people sticker shock, but that is one of the true reasons. If you want to answer a client that asks you, why is the safari so expensive compared to a cruise to the Caribbean? That is the reason. It's a premium that goes out to create that openness and that space and that environment where there are no other humans. So we then we stayed in Windhoek for a night, but I would actually recommend that you fly out immediately. There are connecting flights, so there's 2 flights out of Windhoek to South Africa in the afternoons, one in the early afternoon, like lunchtime, and then one around 5:30. So I would suggest you take the 5:30 flight out of Windhoek when you come back from Etosha, get to Johannesburg, settle in. The next morning, you can have a scheduled flight to Hoedspruit and then get to Tandatula. For anyone that's interested to have a copy of this little presentation, I've just added some incredibly interesting aspects that is being practiced at Tandatula. And may be very interesting when you have a conversation with a client to say to them, well, I've chosen this specific spot, or this specific spot was recommended by our local DMC in South Africa due to the fact that they're involved in so many of these amazing projects. I'm not going to go through them. There's 2 pages of that, but read through it, and it's inspiring to see the wonderful work that is happening due to the fact that people are able to travel, and that US dollar that gets paid to the conservation levy that is part of a safari package. There's accommodation, but then you also have the expense of the conservation levies and so forth, conservation fees. These fees are all going to these kind of projects. So you can really explain to a client why you choose that property, first of all, and then what happens with the money. I think if people understand that, it might be easier for them to understand why it's such an expensive trip. That's just a beautiful aerial shot of the new boma. It's like you can see there's the table and a fire. It's just one of the things that you do at night when you're out in safari. You come back from game drive, and then they've set up this beautiful dinner table, and you can have dinner. Tandatula is just reopened, so this is just a beautiful shot of some of the interior, and that you can see the bottom, the exterior, and at the end, this is what we want to achieve. So you can imagine how different this experience is from what the first slide that I showed. We want our guests to have peace and tranquility when they come to Africa, and for them to truly understand and experience every aspect of it. You want to hear the birds sing, you want to hear the absolute quietness of the bush, or you want to hear the elephants or lions roaring. And I think it's so much more special when you do it the right way. I always say to all the TAs that I work with, I'd rather let the guest postpone the trip and save a little bit more money and do it properly and right, because I think it can be extremely disappointing if you don't do it right. And we want the word, to go out and for people to say, you should go and experience this. It's life-changing, because it is. So I hope that explains a little bit of Southern Africa.
It definitely does. It does. It looks like a life-changing trip, which I didn't. I think you have several lives when you do multiple trips to Africa, from what I can understand, having not done it myself. But I get so lost in your stories every time we do a webinar with you, and you share with us the different very diverse areas on the continent as a whole. So let me see if we have any questions. I think you did a great job, Ru, of already addressing a lot of the questions that many of our attendees have. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Ru, I have we have done past webinars, as I mentioned. So if you have some more of the, I don't want to say normal, some of the more popular trips, we do have that in our library. So I'm happy to point some of our attendees that joined us today if they want a little bit more what they're familiar with when it comes to an African itinerary. But I do believe that you brought up some very, very important and valid points. And I think a lot of travelers now are definitely wondering where their money is going. And I think it's important to definitely highlight the sustainability practices of the specific accommodations or the camps that you chose, but also when you're working with the conservatories. So I think as always, Ru, I always learn so much from you.
It's a pleasure, Maggie.
Yeah, well, and I will also share the recording, because I know that I, for one, would want to go back and kind of reference some of the stuff that you covered, because you covered a lot. Were you gone the whole 13 days? Did you do that specific itinerary?
Yes.
Was it just you, or did you take some friends with you?
There was a group of us that traveled.
Okay. How large was your group? I'm just curious.
5.
Okay. This is all stuff I think advisors ask me. Well, how large? How small? Very good. Well,
I think, yes, sorry. I think
no.
this would be perfect for like 3 couples to do a trip like this. I think they will have such a good time. But yeah, it's special. Look, I always say it doesn't matter where you go in Africa, you're not going to go wrong.
I know.
Well,
let me ask you this. What was the highlight for you? What was something that stuck out? What was your favorite part of this particular trip?
So my highlight was here at Wolvedans. We were there, and this is how dark it was, because before like I said to you, I could not see my hand in front of my face. So we were there. Our last night was full moon,
Oh,
and
wow.
I wish I wish I could show you the footage of this, but we basically all of us went. We went for a very long drive in the desert, and Stefan, who's the owner of Wolverdans, he stopped the vehicle and he gave us a beer, and he said, "Go and find a spot and go and just relax and take in this quietness." And we basically saw the sun set and then the moon was rising. And the sounds of nature, the little geckos that make these cute little squeaky noises
Mhm,
and things that you would never hear, it was, you know, the silence was deafening.
mhm.
It was the most incredible experience. I've definitely said to them that it was definitely in the top 10 of my whole life experiences that I would say I will never forget. The sun setting over the desert and then the moon, the full moon rising over it. So incredible experience.
Sounds, I mean, amazing. So, well, I'm going to leave it at that because that sounds very, it's a good place to stop. But thank you, Rue, for calling in from Cape Town this evening.
Pleasure.
And as always, thank you for your expertise and your just perspective. We really appreciate it. And everyone, I will make sure to send you a recording so you can either review or also share with colleagues. Feel free to do so. Give us about a week because it's taking us a little time to download all these and get them uploaded to our YouTube. But I will definitely be in touch. Rue, as always, it's always lovely to see you.
Thanks,
Any
Maggie.
excuse
Thanks,
to chat with you
everyone.
is wonderful. And everyone have a nice day.
Yeah, have a great day. Thanks for your
Thank you.
time.